Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Laura Prada from the Telesur studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. The Council of Electoral Specialists of Latin America has praised the transparency and organization of the municipal elections in Venezuela. The former president of the Supreme Electoral in El Salvador, Eugenio Chicas, confirmed that the elections complied with international standards, adding that the electoral system is recognized for being the most audited and technologically advanced.
We could see the logistics, the electoral materials, the polling stations, and the personnel were on time and arranged in each place. We saw in first hand how the social and political climate during the elections was quiet and normal.
Audits in most of the continent's electoral systems are not like this, and all these things are criticized. We would say that the necessary changes have not been met yet, but it's admirable that the electoral system has been perfected.
Also in Venezuela, the Vice President Delcy Rodriguez praised the role of the 1999 Constitution as human rights guarant of the 70th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and rejected how international media claims a humanitarian crisis in the country.
For the first time, our Constitution focused on human rights. Our minister presence is also the expression of the socialist Bolivarian model that guarantees the right to health, education, housing, and gender equality. This is just a sample of what our liberator, Hugo Chavez, implemented. Global media is hunting Ebola in Venezuela, but they don't mention the humanitarian crisis caused by NATO in the Mediterranean, or mass violation of migrants' human rights in the United States, nor how it's suppressing migrants who want to cross the U.S. border.
The Bolivarian National Armed Forces in Venezuela have received aircraft from Russia to raise the level of defense. The two Russian White Swans will participate in combined operational flights and are part of the military and technical cooperation between the two countries initiated in 2005.
The armored force have come to welcome you to the homeland of our hero liberator Simón Bolívar and our commander Hugo Chávez.
The Russian ambassador to Venezuela, Vladimir Zaimsky, has said it is an honor to be part of a new era of increased cooperation between the two countries.
Technical and military cooperation is being developed in a very fruitful way over the last year. I would like to say the following. Long live Russia and Venezuela. Live the Russian-Venezuela friendship.
Now we move to Mexico because 22 days have passed since people from the migrant caravan arrived at the border with the U.S. looking for asylum as refugees. Our correspondent Paulo Perez tells us more from Tijuana.
We're still here in Tijuana, Baja California. This is the 22nd day since the first members of the migrant caravan arrived to this border town of Mexico, bordering with San Diego, California. And well, there's an interesting number that was released by the California Border Patrol that said that in the last few weeks, the number of detentions has raised up to 2,100, over 2,100 Central American migrant detained after crossing the border illegally. Let's remember that this is one of the ways of asking for refugee status or asylum, humanitarian asylum. This is the legal way to cross the border, and then when detained by a border office, asking for refugee status. Well, that number has raised not only here in the border between Baja California and California, but also in all over the border from Texas to California. And that's interesting because this peak that rose over 60% of the normal number of Central American migrants detained means, according to some experts, that there has been a rise on the number of Central American migrants that are leaving their country for security or political or economical reasons, which is a sign of what is the status on their origin countries. And well, it's a telltale of how the migration phenomenon is not reduced to the caravan alone, but it's a generalized process that is happening all over Central America.
And the Mexican prison human rights activist Alejandro Solalinde has embarked on a project to register members of the migrant caravan sleeping on the streets of Tijuana. Solalinde and a team of volunteers are interviewing migrants to find out what they want, taking details of their professional training to help them on the job search and asylum applications. The project aims at helping migrants while they are waiting for a chance to enter the United States. And the United Nations Conference of Migration have endorsed the Global Pact for Safe, Orderly and Regular Migration. The pact was approved by 160 countries despite the withdrawal of the United States and a number of European countries who are opposed to the agreement. Here's a quick list of who voted for the pact and who opposed it. The UN Migration Pact aimed at improving the way the world deals with migration flow was agreed in July by all 993 members except the United States. But on Monday, only 164 countries signed the final agreement. The US was the first government to reject the proposal last year. Since then, Australia, Austria, Czech Republic, Hungary, Latvia, Poland and Slovakia have also pulled out of the process. Among the Latin American countries, Chile and the Dominican Republic have voted against the agreement. Meanwhile, Bulgaria, Estonia, Italy, Israel, Slovenia and Switzerland are still undecided on whether to agree to the new pact. The United Nations estimates there are about 258 million migrants in the world, or just over 3% of the world population. The Global Immigration Pact was approved by more than 160 countries that attended to the UN Intergovernmental Conference in Morocco's capital, Marrakesh. The pact will allow countries to collectively help the flow of migration and undocumented migrants. UN Secretary Antonio Guterres said that the agreement is not a treaty and that each state is free to determine its own migration control. However, participating countries believe it will help with illegal immigration.
Today, more than 80% of the world's migrants move between countries in a safe and orderly fashion. But unregulated migration bears a terrible human cost. A cost in lives lost on perilous journeys across deserts, oceans and rivers, and a cost in lives ruined at the hands of smugglers, unscrupulous employers and other predators. More than 60,000 migrants have died on the move since the year 2000, and this is a source of collective shame.
With this call to organize migration, we come to a first break here from the South, but make sure to follow us on Twitter at Telesur English and my personal account, Laura P. Telesur. We'll be back.
With developing events being presented through analysis. Our coverage transcends borders. With renowned journalist Walter Martinez.
Salud amigos, tripulantes de nuestra querida, contaminada y única nave espacial.
Dossier. Weekdays. Only on Telesur.
Y ponga usted las cámaras, señor director.
The ruling world order has always subjugated the masses. But who are the actors behind every move? What are their real interests? We analyze every move on critical move. Weekday, only on Telesur.
And we are back. Now we go to France, where President Emmanuel Macron promised to raise the minimum wage and speed up tax cuts in response to fiery Yellow Vest protests that have rocked the country. Macron issued the assurances on a televised address to the nation that he pledged to cut taxes for pensioners and raise the minimum wage in January. But Macron has refused to bring back a wealth tax, saying it would only drive the rich out of the country. It was Macron's first public comments after the fourth consecutive weekend of nationwide anti-government demonstrations that turned violent.
I'm asking the government and the parliament to do all that's necessary for all of us to have a better quality of life. From the beginning of next year, the minimum wage will increase 100 euros per month from 2019, without this representing extra expenditure from employers. I'm asking all of those employers who can to give a bonus to all their workers for the end of the year. This bonus will not be charged to employees.
Meanwhile, several high school students have been arrested in Paris when they were trying to block access to an education center. Some of them were handcuffed by security forces who also fired tear gas against other students. Last week, similar actions took place across France to protest against education reforms and to join the Yellow Vest protests. Now we go to Paris to our correspondent Sergio Rodrigo, who has the details.
Here in the streets of Paris, more than 300 people have been detained by more than 8,000 security forces deployed across the city. They have blocked all the entrances to the Champs-Élysées. Hundreds of protesters are trying to continue marching, but the barricades set up by the police are blocking them. Thousands of people have flooded the streets to demand the resignation of President Emmanuel Macron and to reject his neoliberal measures and budget cuts. Security forces have used tear gas against the protesters who tried to reach the Arc de Triomphe, which has become a symbol for the Yellow Vest protesters. Students, railway workers, and ambulance drivers have also joined the protest against Macron's measures. According to the latest polls, there is a massive rejection by the French population. Only 20% of the people supports his administration.
Also in Europe, the British Prime Minister Theresa May has postponed the parliamentary vote on Brexit scheduled for this Tuesday. Theresa May made the decision after it became clear that she would not be able to secure a majority. The Northern Ireland border is one of the main issues May disagrees on. The European Union President has called for a Brexit summit for this Thursday, but he's making it clear that the group will not renegotiate the deal.
It is clear that while there is broad support for many of the key aspects of the deal, on one issue, the Northern Ireland backstop, there remains widespread and deep concern. As a result, if we went ahead and held the vote tomorrow, the deal would be rejected. Having spent the best part of 2 years poring over the detail of Brexit, listening to the public's ambitions and, yes, their fears too, and testing the limits of what the other side is prepared to accept, I'm in absolutely no doubt that this deal is the right one.
Pro- and anti-Brexit demonstrators have protested after May's announcements. Dozens of protesters gathered outside Parliament waving banners and chanting slogans. Both sides said they are against it to defer the Brexit vote.
So I think putting the deal, the decision off, is just going to make it worse, because there's going to be further uncertainty, further instability, and we've basically got a weak and rudderless government at the moment, and what we need is some kind of resolution, some way forward.
I think it's a poor show. I think she should crack on with it now. She's promised she'd do it. She's backtracking again. I personally would now like to see the vote go ahead. I'd like to see her lose the vote. I'd like to see her then resign, and I'd like a new leader of the Conservative Party.
We come to the Caribbean, where the government of St. Kitts and Nevis is expected to deliver a basket of goodies when it presents its annual budget on Wednesday. Prime Minister Timothy Harris, who will table the fiscal package in Parliament, says the Twin Islands economy is at an all-time best. He says public servants will receive a double salary on December 14th, and that's for an unprecedented third consecutive year. The government also is undertaking a number of new poverty alleviation programs. Last year, Harris delivered a $191 million budget. A sizable sum of cash has been stolen from the Piarco International Airport in Trinidad and Tobago. The island's national carrier Caribbean Airlines has confirmed the incident. In a brief statement, the airline said the undisclosed sum was unlawfully removed by a man purporting to be a FtS security officer. The matter is being investigated by the Trinitarian Police Service. Argentine armed forces violently repressed a student protest using tear gas at the University of Rio Negro. Rubber bullets were also used on students who were peacefully protesting against the budget cut. Human rights organizations have condemned the use of excessive force and have demanded the immediate release of detainees. In Brazil, a federal court has given the green light to take over of Embraer, the country's top plane maker, by the U.S. giant Boeing. The $3.8 billion tie-up between Embraer and Boeing was proposed in July. Last week, a group of lawmakers from the Brazilian Workers' Party won an injunction to stop the deal going ahead immediately. They said it would mean heading over one of Brazil's most successful industry to foreign control. A higher court has now overturned that injunction, allowing Boeing to buy 80% of Embraer. And protests have been called across Brazil to demand the immediate release of prison of Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva. To coincide with the demonstrations, an international conference in defense of democracy takes place in Sao Paulo. The event brings together leaders of the Brazilian Workers' Party, including Dilma Rousseff, and representatives of the left-wing movement in Latin America and beyond. The PT president says she is confident Lula will be free by Christmas. And more than 40 investigations have been opened since Odebrecht released information to Peruvian public prosecutors. The investigations will explore alleged corruption cases related to construction in the country in recent years. 4 former presidents are involved in the investigations. The information was released as part of an agreement with the construction company, which has to continue collaborating with prosecutors. And this December 10th marks the 70th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, still facing many challenges. The document was approved by the United Nations General Assembly in Paris, France. It includes 30 articles with basic human rights. By that time, the world had suffered already 2 world wars, a Great Depression, and the genocide of Jewish people. Now, the world faces other challenges such as climate change and migration. In Paraguay, social and political organizations have marched in the capital Asunción against human rights violations. Demonstrators commemorated the International Human Rights Day. They condemned human rights violations on indigenous communities, campesinos, farmers, and women. Was also denounced the persecution that social activists still suffer in the country. Time for a second break here from the South. Stay tuned.
acompañamos a los pueblos que resisten en cada una de sus luchas.
Somos esa ventana que se abre para visibilizarlos entre fronteras.
Thursdays, only on FtS. Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your green zone. Wednesdays, only on FtS.
Welcome back. The European Union has extended sanctions on the Democratic Republic of Congo's ruling party candidate. The sanctions on asset freeze and entry ban into the European Union zone have been imposed on Emmanuel Ramazani Shadari as a response to the obstruction of the electoral process back in 2016. They are also related to the human rights violation in the country. The opposition in Togo has accused security forces of using excessive force. This after a child was killed during protests against the upcoming elections scheduled for December 20th. The opposition is boycotting the polls due to the government's refusal to accept their demands to reform the Electoral Commission and establish a 2-year term limit for presidents.
We condemn with the utmost vigor yesterday's event perpetrated by the security forces, police and gendarmerie, especially to help by the Togolese armed forces, the Red Berets.
Protests have taken place in Yemen to demand the end of blockade on the Hodeida port and the reopening of the Sana'a airport. People demonstrated in capital Sana'a outside the UN headquarters, this as peace talks take place between the government and Houthi rebels in Sweden. Protesters say the blockade limits their access to humanitarian aid.
We're asking the UN to lift the blockade of Sana'a airport and calling on the international community to have some responsibility towards the suffering of the Yemeni people because of this blockade and the humane practice by the enemy coalition, which is blocking access for commercial ships carrying fuel to Hodeida port. Your blockade is blocking our access to medicine and food.
Thousands of people have taken to the streets in Vilnius calling on the Lithuanian government to raise wages for teachers ahead of the country's budget vote. About 6,000 people were marching to pressure the ruling Farmers and Greens Union Party to drop a recent labor tax cut in order to pull more funds for school. The Lithuanian parliament is set to adopt the budget for 2019 on December 18th. The former Nissan chairman Carlos Ghosn has been charged with financial misconduct by Tokyo prosecutors. Ghosn was accused of not reporting his payments for 5 years and have been taken into custody again. He was arrested in November and on Monday was the last day before authorities had to either release or charge him. Car company Nissan has also been charged for financial irregularities allegations. In Japan, false financial declarations can carry a sentence of up to 10 years of prison.
Ladies and gentlemen, please. Versatility and value have met.
Jamaica's government is looking forward to speedy resolutions with Petrojam and Venezuela in buying back the island's 49% stake in the oil refinery. While healing the strong bond between the two countries, Prime Minister Andrew Holmes said Petrojam has become a fiscal risk.
We have offered to buy back the 49% shares from our friends in.
Jamaica's Prime Minister has ordered Petrojam Board to conduct forensic audit into 500,000 barrels worth of oil losses. He was responding to the findings of an audit of a state-owned oil refinery, Petrojam, by the Auditor General's Department.
I'm going to direct the board to once again, and I say once again, I have never done it before, but there have been several audits, including forensic audits, done. But I'm going to once again, this time for the last time, direct the board to start the process to identify how can we lose 600,000 barrels of oil over 5 years, and to explain to the public what this is, because some people have said it's stolen oil, it's missing oil. And as I dig deeper, there could be the possibility of pilferage, and indeed we have heard anecdotal cases of pilferage of finished products. But it could be wastage. It could be technical losses.
The Lebanese army continued to patrol the border with Israel after an assault by the Israeli Defense Force. Israeli soldiers opened fire against the Lebanese resistance Hezbollah. The Lebanese government announced that it would file a complaint to the United Nations Security Council against Israel's aggression. At least 3 people were killed and another 11 were injured when an empty school bus crashed into a crowded sidewalk in Hong Kong. 3 elderly people died when the bus rolled down about 100 meters from where it was parked. The driver rushed to stop it but was caught underneath the vehicle. He was dragged along for about 20 meters before coming loose, suffering head injuries. Police believe he didn't pull the handbrake properly. Like this, we've come to the end of this news brief, but this and many other stories, you can find them on our website, telesurenglish.net, where, of course, you can read opinion articles and find special interviews. Stay with Telesur, connecting the Global South. Until next time.